JCOM will not be called a commission anymore, which is in the title, but it will be a joint WMO-IOC advisory board. And it has a meaning, which I'll try to make clear in my presentation. So the first 20 years, we're actually 20 years old in JCOM. I will try to show you where we are today and the intersessional results that we achieved. We have 2 talks after mine that will explain better some of the intersessional results, so I will not go into details. Tim Boyer and Kevin O'Brien will talk about some of them. Then I will briefly, very briefly, skim over the WMO reform, and I will present some of the interesting JCOM strengths and weaknesses analysis that was done when we started to plan the changes, and then the challenges ahead of us. So before JCOM, JCOM is actually, I like to remind a phrase that my professor was always telling me, that we now have a pretty good idea through all the work that we do in oceanography on how the whole ocean moves and behaves the way it does. But we need to think that this ocean needs to be coupled to the atmosphere, and that we need to couple the circulation of the ocean and the one in the atmosphere to understand the changes in weather and climate they jointly produce. So it is, in fact, we had before a comment which was interesting. We have a privileged community to interface with, which is the WMO community, is the meteorological community. The ocean is driven by the atmosphere, and it drives the atmosphere itself on certain scales. So we need really to think in the future to have a privileged connection with this. And people in 99, before 99 actually, thought about doing work together with between WMO and IOC in different contexts, in a little bit of a not well-organized way. So WMO and IOC had an integrated global ocean service system which sponsored the Ship of Opportunity program, the Global Sea Level Observing System, GLOS. WMO had a commission for marine meteorology, which was quite important, which again was looking at marine meteorology. So this is voluntary observing ship scheme, which now is together with the SOUP. The WMO-IOC data buoy cooperation panel started very early, and that also is still a important, very important network for data collection at the interface between the ocean and the atmosphere and just below the surface. And then IODE, which is here, very important, organizing national oceanography data centers, and sponsoring part of the Global Temperature Salinity Profile Program, GTSPP, very famous. And finally, IOC GOOS and operational oceanography from 1992. So all these programs were preparing a part which is based upon science, but it is mainly concerned with delivering services for the benefit of society, which you might think are at the basis of achieving the targets of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. But we are not yet there. Okay, so in 1999, JCOM starts with the visions of some of our colleagues, and now WMO and IOC get together. So in this technical commission, and the mission was to better collaborate between WMO and IOC with regard to common goals in observations, data management, and services. And this is the quality of JCOM. It is an end-to-end, it tries to look at the end-to-end system, from observations to customized products for users or applications, if you want. And most important in JCOM is to enhance best practices and standards, integrate data products and services, as I said, the end-to-end, capacity development, and then the dialogue with satellite community. You will see that we haven't been successful in all of them, but we started in 20 years good communication in some of these fields. And naturally, it was mainly devoted also to marine meteorology and ocean observations to support the WMO and IOC applications and implementation end-to-end data management to address the needs of marine users for data and products, development of operational oceanography, which is now fully developed. Okay, so at the end of these 20 years, we have many expert groups and many networks that really contain a lot of information and have collaborated to create new data sharing infrastructures and have worked out new services. So we like to see the system in JCOM. We still have this observation area, the data management area, and the services of forecasting services area. So even up to the last JCOM 5 session in November 2017, we had new groups converging into JCOM. They are the red ones. The others are more traditional. So JCOM coordinates all the networks that actually deliver data through the GTS or in real time through any data dissemination or data assembly center. And you can find here all the names. Some are really JCOM groups, like DBCP, GLOS, and so on, and VOS. Others are network that join JCOM to produce best standards. And then we have JCOM Ops, which I'll show you a bit later, which is a success of JCOM, and it is a metadata portal to know how is the situation of the global monitoring at the global level. We have also new groups associating themselves with JCOM, TPOS, the Tropical Pacific Observing System, which is going to replace the TOGA-TAO system, such an important observational system, which is now being interfaced properly with all these other networks. Data management really has been supported by IODE. The major groups working here have been well connected to IODE, and we have now a new group that I will show a bit later. We have also we have changed the services. These services are a bit mixed in the new nomenclature. They're a bit of a more fundamental services, such as operational ocean forecasting, together with application services, such as disaster risk reduction, customized inundation forecast. But it is where we are in oceanography and the connection with meteorology. And then we have the cross-cutting themes, among others, and most important, capacity development. So this was the structure, a very complicated structure. In 20 years, a lot of interest, a lot of groups wanted to enter, and now we had an opportunity. We had the opportunity to simplify this and connect better to the WMO reform. And so I hope we will take together this opportunity, because IODE is a very important force inside JCOM. So, results. JCOM Ops is the most obvious result out of this coordination work. It is a metadata portal where you find every month, with a distance of approximately 1 or 2 months, the whole system observing at the global scale, and with the different technologies, and you can get support for implementing actually most of these technologies. So this is a very important point, and it's not a data delivery portal. It is a metadata portal, which, however, is strongly needed in order to know where you might position your next float or your next instrument by knowing that others are near you. This is a very good example and optimal example of coordination and result from JCOM. Now, Kevin O'Brien will show you this. I think this is also a very important result. So open the GTS to oceanography in a way that has not been done before. And I think this is also very important, because oceanography is mainly research-based. So we need to have easy access for oceanographers to GTS data, and also allow them to send through the GTS their data. So this is important. Again, Kevin O'Brien will show you this. Then this is also an important step. We have, well, they have designed, not me, the marine climate data system in the previous JCOM, previous to 2012, and during the intersessional period, 2012 to 2017, we had a partial implementation of this. What is this? This is a classification of centers and protocols for data exchange in order to have a more coherent, discoverable, documented data sets. So very important. This is again going on the main mission of JCOM, and it was clearly done together with IODE, and we need to, come larger, this system has to be better integrated with ODIS, but ODIS just started now, and with WMO. So this is also very important, and Tim Boyer will talk about this later. So having now ODIS on one side and WIS on the other side, and being JCOM at the interface between WMO and IOC, we then constructed a group which is called interface between the ODIS system and the WIS system, that should, again, provide best standards for oceanographic centers and WIS centers, which are meteorological centers, to exchange data. Also very important, and as well as very important is the growth of the ODIS activity within IODE. In order to structure better the oceanographic community, which then will be in contact with the rather well-structured WMO community, for the benefit of both systems. And then, last but not least, an example through different demonstrations on how getting together with the meteorologists and oceanographers, you can really face the problem of coastal inundation, wave hazards, and bringing together, models that go from waves, inundation, river, with forecast models, meteorological forecast models. And this also is a very practical example of how the interaction between WM and IOC can really support sustainable development goals and disaster risk reduction. Okay, but WMO a few years ago decided to change. And so WMO is clearly much older than JCOM, and JCOM understood that this new structure that WMO is thinking about it, which is, I have to say, I admire, and I really think is a very nice new structure, and I'll try to point out why I think is a good one. JCOM could not face the interface, was not interfacing well anymore. Okay, so let's say the Vision 2030 for WMO is a world where all nations, especially the most vulnerable, are more resilient to the socio-economic impact of extreme weather, climate, water, and other environmental events, and empowered to boost their sustainable development through the best possible weather, climate, and water services. So you see the slant that they have, sort of keeping that the science is done in meteorology, and then having in mind that the science is done in meteorology, and now going to the services. Okay, and the structure that WMO had did not fulfill this goal properly. And it had 8 intergovernmental committees or commissions, which were sort of detached one from the other, and so they decided to go for 2 out of 8. And so 1 for services and 1 for infrastructure. Here you find them, 1 and 2. And inside infrastructure, they put observations, forecasting, and data management. So all this is infrastructure, and then services is instead the applications, the customized services. So I think this change will bring, they want to stop, right? Okay? So I have no time. This has actually come out bad. I conclude. Sorry. Sorry. So what do we do in order to face? Let me see here. Let's see. So what do we do in this in JCOM now? We built a joint WMO-IOC consultation group. We have WMO representatives, 6 on one side and 6 from IOC. On the other side, we have GCOS, GOOS, and WCRP. We had 2 meetings. We will have another one at the end of this week. And we are preparing this new JCOM, which will be an advisory board. And last, this is really the last, the collaboration between WMO and IOC will be based on these 2 pillars, which is the infrastructure, services, and application, but also will be much better coordinated with IOC programs. So IODE and GOOS will take much more responsibilities in terms of coordinating some of the groups that were born inside JCOM. And I hope that this will bring closer ties between scientists and these big coordination teams, which are important. Thanks for your attention.